Alright lads, and welcome to another video. Now before you do a typical YouTube viewer and begin commenting before even watching the video, I'd like to know that this video is not stating that Morrowind is completely a better game than either Skyrim or Oblivion. These videos are actually critiquing certain features within the series which are better than their older or younger brother. There are some things in Morrowind which were done better than the other games in some people's opinions, and there are improvements within Skyrim and Oblivion in comparison to Morrowind. This video is being made because, I just absolutely love all my subscribers so much. I've been reading your comments, and a number of you have been telling me about the exact same reasons why Oblivion's better than Skyrim. Morrowind probably did even better. So I've listened, and because at the end of the day, this channel doesn't exist without you. Now, the reason why this video is counted down 5 reasons instead of 10 is mostly because the reasons why Oblivion is better than Skyrim are exactly the same reasons why Oblivion is better than Skyrim. So these videos are kind of, repeating themselves quite a lot. This video will focus on the very unique features of Morrowind which single it out from the other games. I haven't personally played Oblivion that much, so a lot of this video is actually the words of a friend who I interviewed and turned into a script, because on this channel we actually do actual work like that. But anyway, enough ranting, let's get on with the countdown. One of the things I can remember about Morrowind, I have played it a little bit, I just haven't played it that much, which hasn't, this kind of feature hasn't been replicated since Morrowind, was the more intense role-playing character creation in the form of a questionnaire, which would determine your starting abilities and stats. I like these kind of things. It reminds me of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. You'd answer a load of questions and it would determine what kind of Pokemon you are. I like that kind of thing, and I think they should be implemented into more modern role-playing games, since most of them just jump you into the action these days so that you don't get bored. And obviously this is better to keep people interested in the game, but it takes away the characterization and immersion, which is what RPG games are all about. With Skyrim, you pick a race and that's it. There's nothing else. You're just thrown into the intense dramatic situation with dragons, and I'm not slagging it off. It's exactly how video games and films should begin to appeal to a contemporary audience, but I don't think the more I don't think the more traditional features should be completely abandoned. Like perhaps, the class creator, like it did in Oblivion, maybe it should occur after a bit of action. So in Morrowind, without anything interesting happening, in fact nothing interesting happens for quite a while in a Morrowind, but you're expected to state your race, birth sign and class without really understanding what the abilities are in the game, unless you read a manual. In Oblivion it's split up slightly so that you pick your race, you get some interesting dialogue, you beat up some cool looking fanatic maniacs, then you get a bit of a solo adventure tutorial, then you pick your birth sign, then you kill some more fanatics, and you get a really cool and interesting plot beginning with the Emperor dying, and then you pick your class before the game becomes open world. But in Skyrim, you kill some soldiers in a cave, and then that's it. There's no class creation, no birth signs or roleplay intro. And it's a shame, because it feels like in order to make a game more appealing to a wider audience, you have to remove content to move forward. There were a lot more factions, guilds, that kind of thing in Morrowind, which suited more specific aspects of your character. So in Oblivion and Skyrim you have a mage guild, fighter guild, then 2 kind of stealthy guilds, and that's it. But the factions in Morrowind were more extensive, more specific. Like for instance, guilds more attuned to necromantic plays, people who like conjuration. There are different divisions of soldier guilds, like the Blades, the Fighters Guild, the Imperial Legion, Imperial Knights, the I'm probably not going to say this right, the Camonatong, which is basically like a mercenary faction. You had different vampire factions at war with each other, and even government or clan factions focused on law and tax collecting. So overall there were more options to the kind of character you wanted to become, and the game actually forced you to start playing these faction storylines before you could even progress further in the main story. If you combined the different enemies from Oblivion and Skyrim, you probably still won't have a large enough number of enemies of Morrowind. There was a lot of freaky, outlandish looking enemies in Morrowind, which made the game feel more like a science fiction sometimes rather than a medieval fantasy, which is, I kind of liked. If you look at all the plants and stuff, it's absolutely mental. There are things like bone walkers, hungers and ash ghouls, and you see a lot more horror themed enemies which look like the monsters on Silent Hill in a way. I mean, when you look at games like Oblivion and Skyrim, it's almost like they're little babies of Morrowind when it comes to enemies, because Oblivion kind of took away Morrowind's Daedra creatures, and Skyrim took away the Dwarven mechanicals. There's also a larger variation in a lot of things in Morrowind, like weapons, skills, and armor slots. You could have tantos, spears, darts, halberds, as well as different sized bows. You even had like crossbows and stuff, like in the default game. And like, like what I was saying about the enemies, Morrowind has a number of skills from both Oblivion and Skyrim, like enchanting, which wasn't in Oblivion, and then acrobatics, which wasn't in Skyrim. The game's actually, if you look at the games, are quite literally just shrinking in stuff. Looking at this chart right now, I mean, it's getting smaller with each game. And you even, in games like Arena, you had like language skills and stuff, like speaking to giants, speaking to dragons and stuff. There were, however, no skill perks in Oblivion, Morrowind or Oblivion that much, so really the skills are merging rather than shrinking some of the time, but nonetheless things are gradually being removed. But overall, there were more ways to end somebody's life in Morrowind. You could even beat up somebody with a magical staff or a fork. Now, my last reason is extremely subjective to a particular person's opinion. It's either something you prefer or not, but the game in... the game in Morrowind? Basically, the game didn't, kind of like The Witcher, for instance, as an example, it doesn't scale to the player like it does in Oblivion or Skyrim. You may travel over a mountain and find yourself in a high-level zone and get one-shot by a Daedric Lord, which some people may find restrictive on your exploration, but at the same time it makes it feel more realistically alive. Like if you imagine the Lord of the Rings, okay, if Frodo kind of like fast travelled to Mount Doom, the orcs wouldn't be as powerful as a common rat. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So before you could journey to the high level, dangerous areas, you had to become more powerful. So the game follows a more traditional development, by making the player feel like he's journeying on a quest to defeat a dragon at the edge of a world, save a princess, something like that. It's bread and butter fantasy, and in a lot of ways I prefer this. This is what a lot of modern RPG games, they like to forget. RPG games were based on RPG board games, which were based on high fantasy fiction, and the reason why people love them so much is because you can lose yourself completely in these kinds of stories. And I think there needs to be a balance of role-playing and action, rather than just making an open-world Call of Duty game. I'm not saying Skyrim is an open-world Call of Duty game, before you call me up on that. But anyway, if you're, up for listening to more critique like this, I have made a video listing the top things we want out of a new Elder Scrolls game. You'll be able to find that through the video link in the description. My name is The Metagoblin, and until my next video, ciao.